Good morning, Dan and Amy. Some good news to report with respect to Illinois, Amy.
Mm-hmm.
We got a raise last year.
Oh, we did?
Yeah. The per capita taxpayer burden in Illinois increased 11% in the past year.
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh.
We got a raise. The Truth in Accounting, a nonprofit nonprofit organization that looks at the numbers. I'm on the board of Truth in Accounting, so
Of course you
factor that
are.
in, disclose in the interest of full disclosure.
What aren't you on?
So Truth in Accounting does analysis of government accounting and the lack of government accounting, which is most often the case. They issue important reports to give you some context and ways to measure where your state is and what you as a individual or a family in a particular state are facing. So they've released their annual sinkhole state report. And there's the sinkhole states, and then there's the sunshine states. Which do you think Illinois is?
We go with sinkhole state.
Well, for more...
We better be number one.
I don't want to spoil it. I'll let Truth in Accounting founder Sheila Weinberg tell us. Sheila, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, Dan. Yeah, Illinois. The other quote good news is that we moved ahead of Connecticut. We moved behind Connecticut. So now instead of being the third worst state, now we're actually now the second worst state.
We're coming for you, New Jersey. And when you say worst state, you're looking at the total taxpayer burden per capita.
Yeah, we're looking at, we're taking all the assets on the audited financial statements, taking their bills that they're including on there. We're adding any off-balance sheet bills that they didn't include on there. And, we aren't including the bridges and roads because we don't think you should be selling those even to pay your current bills. And we're coming up with the money needed to pay bills, which we've come up with is $210 billion. Those are bills that should have been, when they said that they balanced the budget in the past, these bills should have been included in those balanced budgets, and they weren't. So they really weren't balancing the budget. You divide that by the number of taxpayers in the state, and you come up with that each taxpayer, to get the state back onto a footing, would have to send $50,400 down to Springfield. Another way to look at it these are taxes that taxpayers are going to have to be burdened with paying in the future. They're going to pay $50,400, and they're not going to receive any government services or benefits for those taxes.
Can
taxpayers did.
Can I pay up front and then be absolved from taxes for the rest of my days here?
Yes, and it's just not a numbers game. It's a public accountability game. Because citizens and voters in Illinois in the past went to the voting booth assuming that the elected officials were telling the truth, that the budgets were balanced. Therefore, the citizens thought everything were fine.
Oh, yeah.
And when maybe somebody voted for somebody, they said, well, they're keeping our house in order. I'll go ahead and vote for them. And would they have changed their vote if they knew that their government was going tens of billions of dollars in debt every year?
So, Sheila, of the $210.4 billion in debt, how much is unfunded pensions? Like, what's the breakdown of that $210 billion?
$138 billion of it is pensions, and $44 billion of it is unfunded retiree health care debt. A lot of people focus on these pensions, which they should, but they are, the good thing about pensions is they are putting some money aside to pay for those. The retiree health care debt, they have promised those to retirees and haven't put hardly any money aside to pay those.
Here, I want to go back to that $50,400 number because that's the per capita check. And you at Truth in Accounting put that in context that I can understand. This is very helpful. You translate that into the number of Coach handbags and pairs of Jimmy Choos that I could buy.
Oh, yeah.
If I didn't have to pay $50,400. So I could buy 127 Coach handbags.
Yep, with your 50,400 or 84 pairs of Jimmy Choos, if you didn't have to pay that. Now,
Boy, that really brings it
Dan,
home.
who are more concerned about food, we calculated that you could buy 16,310 Chicago hot dogs for that $50,400.
Well, yeah, I got to find the right balance between hot dogs and pairs of Jimmy Choo shoes.
No, Jimmy Choo shoes.
You don't have any Jimmy Choo shoes?
Do you think do I look like the type of person who had Jimmy Choo shoes? What do you call them?
You don't know who Jimmy Choo is?
No. And why do you
Sheila,
know who Jimmy Choo is?
Because I am of the
Gotta
fashion
Google
world.
Jimmy Choo.
Yes,
Jimmy
Sheila.
Choo.
Sheila, please explain to Amy so I don't have to again as cosmopolitan fashion plates that we are.
Oh, Jimmy Choo.
Jimmy Choo. I
Those
mean,
are
there's
so
Jimmy Choo.
expensive. $595.
That's why you can only buy 84 pairs with 50 grand.
The Nova Glitters are $695.
Yeah. See, now all of a sudden we've got some interest in math and accounting, Sheila. It's very
Well,
good.
Also, think of people who can't afford Jimmy Choo's, and they're just trying to scrape by every year, and they're paying additional taxes for no government services or benefits. Those were consumed by prior taxpayers, and it's just an unfair situation of pushing taxes onto future taxpayers, and again, not the people, the elected officials telling the public that everything is balanced. They theoretically balanced the last budget.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, you have to be willfully blind in Illinois to believe that budgets are balanced and you're not being spent and borrowed into oblivion. And the thing that strikes me about the numbers, looking at the bottom 5 states from the Truth in Accounting report, is the drop-off. You have New Jersey at $67.2 per capita. Illinois, as we said, $50,400. Connecticut right behind is $49,500, and then it drops to Kentucky at $39 and Massachusetts at $32. I mean, you once you get out of the bottom 5, you're basically seeing 95% of the states that have a per capita tax burden at less than half of Illinois. I mean, it's a precipitous drop.
Yeah, but again, no states except for Vermont should really have a taxpayer burden at all because they all theoretically have balanced their budgets. And the way the states, and the reason that they're allowed, they do this is that the states use cash basis accounting, which is so flawed that the IRS doesn't allow a corporation that makes more than $5 million to do their books in this manner, because it's misleading and doesn't report your true expenses and your revenue. Yet states that make billions of dollars of tax revenue still use this antiquated accounting system to hide the true cost of government.
Well, and the other problem this is part of the problem too, in my observation, is the $50,400. Well, you're not making me write that check tomorrow, so it's a slow bleed over a long period of time. And, it's the old story about boiling the frog, right?
Yeah, and, we gave the Truth in Accounting Award to Utah, who's actually ahead of the game by $4,600. And I gave that to their budget director. And I asked her, I said, what is your state doing correctly that, places like Illinois are doing so poorly? And her comment was, well, we do something really strange. We only promise and provide services and benefits of what we can afford, which seems to be a totally unusual concept, weird foreign concept here in Illinois, in our single state.
That must have something to do with the Mormon religion or something. I've never heard of that. That's crazy. Did you hear this? The zealotry in Utah, but paying for the things that only providing the things they can pay for. That's silliness.
The nice thing about Illinois is that we can sort of point to it of like, well, people used to ask us, what will happen if, in relation to these numbers and these states not really balancing their budgets, and we're experiencing that in Illinois and also in New Jersey. So it's just getting, as you say, it's not it's not getting better. It's getting worse. Illinois last year, as you mentioned, had a lot less. It was only 45,500 back in 2009. Back into the good old days,
Sure.
it was only 29,100. So it's getting worse a lot faster, and it's as the last budget negotiations proved, it makes things very messy and very ugly, and people do suffer. Again, it's not just a numbers game; it's where people are suffering because the government can't provide the services they need, and nonprofits and the people who need those services are hurting.
Yeah, well, death spirals tend to increase in pace if you don't try and right the plane, at least until you crash into terra firma, and that seems to be where we're heading.
And we would urge the governor, let's be, again, as you said, in decades past, people didn't know that they weren't really a balance in the budget, but now it's very obvious. But let's give the public, when we come up with this balanced budget, how far in debt did we go in? How, we're passing this balanced budget to meet some fictitious, poorly worded balanced budget requirement, but how much debt is our audited financial statements going to show when this budget is implemented, and at least give the public knowledge of that, again, so they can, go in with being knowledgeable participants in their government, when they call for higher taxes or they want services cut or people go in to vote, people know, exactly where we stand, not the la-la land that they've been telling us.
That sounds like it's just crazy enough to work. She is Sheila Weinberg, founder of Truth in Accounting. Their Sinkhole State report coming out, truthinaccounting.org is where you can check out that report and all of their material. Sheila, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.